Right, so today I want to make a video updating everyone on the new case totals as well as getting to some other important stuff. So, getting right into it, Canada's up to 68,092 confirmed cases, 47,029, or not 47, 4,729 deaths. 47,000 would be insane. Um, Alberta had 96 new cases yesterday, so we are up a little bit from the average, but we are uh, still down. As long as we can stay under 100 cases, I mean, there's really nothing to worry about. We're still having, again, we still had more people recover than actually were infected. So the whole thing is that people are talking about is, oh, we have to get to the point where um, for every person infected, they're infecting less than one, or people are recovering to make up for that one. And that's been happening for about 10 days straight now. Um, we still have 117 dead, just 71 people in the hospital, and 13 in the ICU. So again, uh, as much as I reiterate, there's still so many people out there. They're still completely oblivious to reality, in that there's absolutely no reason to keep things locked down anymore. It's like I mentioned too, if you wanted to argue that we should have locked down when this thing first started, again, I would still disagree with you knowing what we know now, but that's at least understandable though. We're at the point now to where there's absolutely no reason to keep things locked down. And the problem is that they've continuously shifted the goalpost. First, it was we need to lock things down or the hospitals aren't going to be overwhelmed. When it became obvious that the hospitals aren't going to be overwhelmed, even in the most heavily hit areas, I mean, you look even in New York. I've seen, I've seen the videos that are floating around. People, inside, outside the hospital, they're not overwhelmed, and that's the hardest hit area in North America. So, if the hardest hit areas in North America weren't overwhelmed, then what makes you think that, again, the second wave is going to have to be 100 times worse than the first one for us to have to worry? And it's debatable if there's even going to be a significant wave even to begin with. And even if there is, there's no reason to keep things locked down because we can't keep things locked down forever, too. The big problem is that the lock it down or we're all going to die crowd refuses to. I mean, a lot of them just don't. I would say the majority of them are just so economically illiterate that they think that, food and all the products you buy and stuff like that just magically appears on store shelves, that there's not some massive supply chain that relies on people working, that relies on workers producing that kind of stuff. They're completely oblivious to that kind of stuff. And like I say, if they didn't actually realize that, then they wouldn't believe what they believe. So I do think that these people are so illiterate and ignorant that they literally think that stuff just appears on shelves and the government just magically makes it happen. That's not how it works, though. But anyway, so they shifted the goalpost from, we need to lock things down or the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed, to we need to keep things locked down or there's going to be this terrible second wave. And when it starts to become obvious that regardless of whether or not there's going to be a second wave, we have to reopen or there's going to be literal Great Depression, maybe even worse, levels of collapse and suffering. And the problem with these people seem to think is that if the economy, if there's a recession, that it only hurts the rich. Too, this is something that these people like just so illiterate whatsoever. The people that get hurt in recessions are, I mean, largely the middle class, the poor a little bit too, but it's largely the working class. And again, all these leftists that claim to care so much, we care about the working class, and the poor. But yet they're supporting policies that, number one, they benefit the rich too, because the rich generally walk out of recessions unscathed, if not better. The people that get hurt the most are the working class. So you claim to care so much about the working class will support policies that actually help them. Not your stupid socialistic policies that they sound good in theory. In theory, they work. But the problem is that when you give the government so much power, corruption is inevitable. And what happens? Okay, the rich and the powerful pay off the politicians, and the rich benefit. And again, your whole system's supposed to be set up to prevent against that kind of stuff, but it inevitably leads to that because you want to give government more and more power, and when you give government more and more power, they just abuse it. It's so blatantly predictable. But again, um, just reiterating that. So again, they shifted the goalposts there. The thing that they're shifting the goalposts to now is that, okay, well, we have to wait until there's literally like no cases. Like we literally need like 10 people or even less than that. Oh, if it'll just save one life. But that doesn't make any sense. The amount of people that are going to die from the lockdown is much bigger than the amount ever was. And the problem is that you have zero credibility with anybody with half a brain um, if you're making these "we need to keep it locked down" arguments without coming up with a good cost benefit analysis. And the problem is these people don't do it, is that they just view it through the lens of there's zero downside to keeping things locked down and there's unlimited upside. But what they don't understand is that there is some upside, but the downside greatly outweighs the upside. The upside is we maybe prevent 10-20% of future cases, if that. The downside is Great Depression. Again, which one would you prefer? Would you prefer an extra? Okay, Canada has 68,000 cases. Would you prefer 80,000 cases with maybe 5,500 dead at this point, or Great Depression with 4,700? Like, which one would you prefer? I don't see how you can possibly argue for Great Depression, but we're going to save 500 people. Not that the 500 people don't matter, but the millions that will suffer, a lot of them die, way more than the 5,000 that have currently died, greatly outweighs the other people. So, um, anyway, getting to some other stuff here. This is this guy's responding to Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia. And he says Georgia began lifting its lockdown 15 days ago. Restaurants opened 8 days ago. And this tweet is from May 9th. It is now May 11th. So it's actually been 17 days and 10 days. So that's enough for the incubation period. Again, 1-2 weeks after opening. If when we reopen, we're all gonna get infected and we're all gonna die. Crowd was right. Well, then why isn't Georgia seeing a massive uptake in case numbers? Why haven't they seen that? They haven't. South Dakota is another state that's been open for even longer. I don't even know if they did fully close. Have they seen this massive outbreak, massive uptick in cases? Well, no, they haven't. So again, that's the other problem that these people assume, the keep it locked down or we're all going to die crowd, that they assume that the reason why we're preventing a massive outbreak is because of the lockdowns, which is false. The only debate is how much do the lockdowns help, and it's very clear that the lockdowns make very little difference for the simple reason that the places that have opened have not seen this massive uptake. If the lockdowns are exclusively responsible for preventing massive amounts of spread, then we should see the places that reopen have massive amounts of spread 1, 2, 3 weeks after they open, and that hasn't happened. There isn't any cases of that. So again, I know I'm reiterating, but again, this is more evidence on top of what I've already said. This is from Dan Bongino, and he says absolutely zero F's given right now if you're a Republican or a Democrat politician. If you're locking up innocent business owners for trying to feed their families or standing while it happens, then you're part of the problem, and I'll do everything I can to expose you. Now, again, these people that are reporting people for doing, again, if you're having 100 people over to your house to have a party, I could see, yeah, maybe you probably shouldn't be doing that. I don't really care. I think you should be able to do that, but I can at least understand if you want to be a Karen type and do that kind of stuff. But for people opening a small business, for people holding hands in public, I've seen multiple cases of mothers being arrested because they were playing with their kids alone in a park. Like, come on, like this is absolutely insane. This is stuff that only happens in authoritarian, totalitarian countries. And you have all these people that are supposedly, we're anti-fascist, we hate the Nazi in the White House right now, but yet you're supporting fascist Nazi policies. It's almost like you're the Nazi. Get a grip. And it's really weird. It's that the beliefs of Nazis have really changed according to these people, because now it's the people that don't want to ban free speech, who don't want to ban the First Amendment, who don't want to ban the Fourth Amendment, who don't want to ban, freedom to assemble. All of a sudden, Nazis they've really shifted things. They have the opposite of the views they used to have. It's almost like the people accusing other people of being Nazis are actually the Nazis. It's just a thought. Um, so this is from Stefan Molyneux. He says the same media that never saw war, didn't lust after, now wants you to believe that every life is sacred. Again, the mainstream media claim, oh, we care so much about, oh, if it's just one life, all this crap, but yet it was, thanks to the mainstream media blowing lies out of proportion, the WMD's conspiracy theory. What, 500,000 people from the Middle East have died from that. Thousands of Americans, some Canadians, all that kind of stuff, all for a war that didn't need to happen. Like, didn't need to happen. So the mainstream media has no credibility when it comes to this kind of stuff. All they care about is power and money. That's all they care about. Um, so this is something that Project Veritas put out. They basically caught CBS News faking fake news, basically, in that they were having this, interviews, and they're showing it on the news, and they're showing a lineup of cars and a lineup of people to get tested. And long story short, they were making it appear that it was a lot busier than it actually was. And for the simple reason that if they can say, oh, look at all the people coming, it's doomsday, that's going to be better for ratings than if it's, hey, there's 2 people here and we got 20 workers. Like, where's all the people? Like, no one cares about that. But if it's, oh, we're overwhelmed with the amount of people coming in, well, yeah, that's a news story. So again, and the point I wanted to point out here is that if this is the doomsday virus, if this is we need to keep things locked down or we're all going to die, then why does the media need to make stuff up to make that narrative look right? If the keep it locked down crowd is right, well then why does the media need to make stuff up to make your narrative appear correct? It's almost like we don't need to. It's almost like the hospitals are nowhere close to being overwhelmed. But anyway, so that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you'd like to, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe. And last couple things, as always, check out my Twitter if you haven't already. It's in the bottom left corner here. You can see. Um, and last thing, as always, check out my BitChute channel as well if you haven't already.